How do you do? Today we'll be talking about the similarities of the Tinder Swindler and I'm Georgina, and also a bit on Arnabe, since title "Thank You" ups my views. I will teach you how not to be conned and not to be swindled, but most of this you know already. The Tinder Swindler's victims were classic 50-50 feminist Norwegian women, since he knows the culture is not hypergamous, so they wouldn't know what dating up and dating a man with money looks like. A lady in my secret group actually met Simon Lviv, the Tinder Swindler, in a restaurant when he was in Helsinki. So she said that he had longer hair, was very well dressed, extremely charming. A lady, and then he started to talk about fairy tales, taking her a trip somewhere, and she thought she was a bit bizarre. He was very superficial, pushy, and she told him, "I don't like how pushy you are. Your charm can only take you so far. Goodbye." And she remembered him raising his arms in disappointment. He had a hedonistic essence and was very shallow, superficial, and was shocked that any mature woman could fall for him. He felt 1,000 red flags because he was very shallow and empty. She trusted her gut and walked away. There was absolutely nothing about that man except fluff. As Our Lady is hypergamous, and in our group she's anything but naive and could see all the signs, from too many brands, too much superficiality, and then talking about Prince and fairy tales. So, someone is dressed like a Playboy art strategist, but talking about some fairy tales, she knew something was off. While the Tinder Swindler used brands, flash, and fairy tales to swindle men, Georgina swindles Ronaldo using similar tactics. The reason why I don't wear my real jewelry is I don't want a group of leeches to try to suck off wealth, right? To suck off money. Why would I want to have darlings like Georgina's group? So Georgina is the baby mama of Ronaldo, and she has an entourage, she shows, of leeches who are sucking Birkins and Kellys and all sorts of gifts from her affluent baby daddy. So, and they tastelessly suck all these gifts, and none of them seem to have her social status, and most of them, and they even say they're there because she gives them access to things they wouldn't normally have. The moment Ronaldo's wealth is gone, those darlings will disappear. Georgina reminds me of a conversation I had with a coach who said that, so she was coaching women to be wives and girlfriends of athletes, and said the biggest problem is many athletes maintain their friends from the ghetto or the slum, and then they go back to the ghetto because they made ghetto friends, and the athlete's career is quite short. So if you don't want to go back into poverty, your business is making friends with the wives and girlfriends of the financiers, wealth managers, financial analysts, and for that you have to learn to be classy, to be accepted in their circle, because they care about intergenerational wealth. So you have to not act art strategist and also work to push him away from the majority of his art strategist friends and make a lot of friends who are in the financial sector or have managed wealth for generations. So if you look at Kobe Bryant, he changed his circle, right? Sadly, he passed away, but his daughters were left with great investments. So you have to focus on intergenerational wealth if you're with an athlete. If he's too stupid for that, well, after his career, most of them, because of a lack of financial literacy, end up being bankrupt. It's the same as a lottery winner. They usually end up with less money after winning the lottery than they had before it. Georgina reminded me of Kate Bush, who is banished from social circles in the tri-state area of the United States, and she married an athlete, and she's an art strategist and pushes art strategy, but can't get an invite. Kim Kardashian, because of promoting art strategy, she was banished from the Met Gala until Kanye made her up and made her over, and was Bob the Builder and promised on a tour and others that Kim has really changed. She has developed some class. She's a different person. Ladies, I cannot believe the bloody hell that I just saw. Watching paint dry is far more entertaining. It's extremely boring. Each moment is like the next, where the same talking heads say she's a saint and an angel, and there's absolutely no plot whatsoever. It's an attempt of media and public relations over and over again, like a commercial that won't stop for hours upon hours. It's so dreadfully boring. But I love you all, so I suffered through most of it. Georgina is what the nightmare wife looks like for every affluent man, advertising to the leeches of the world that he is a clueless simp out there for the milking. What Georgina and the Tinder swindler have in common is the knowledge of a scammer that, the poor person does not have the same perception of money as an affluent person does. Affluent people have a legacy strategy, so instead of throwing out their money on an entourage and purses and things like this, affluent people work to build intergenerational wealth. Poor people see money as a potential to do things they couldn't get into otherwise. But for an affluent person, these things aren't new and they become blasé rather quickly. Actual affluent men are scared to display their wealth so much to attract gold diggers unless they're looking for a one-night stand. By gold diggers, I don't mean that what feminists call all of us gold digger, but I mean the strip mine kind who is a graboid, who grabs the money and then runs, right? Nobody wants to be used. Simone Vive, the Tinder swindler, preyed on specifically Swedish and Norwegian, Finnish, Scandinavian women from 50-50 cultures who, when they were younger, saw Disney movies and thought a prince would come and had no idea how to be hypergamous, thus making them easy to dupe. Simone Vive is a Russian Israeli, and in Russia, and also Russian Israelis, have a hypergamous culture, so ladies are expected to marry for both money, but the ability to provide and protect. Ladies are expected to marry someone who would be a good father to their children, and not just marry for love, dove, and above. So money is factored into why a lady should marry, and Russian Israeli women are not shamed to look for money in a gentleman. Why is Georgina a parasite? Well, she spends and flushes her money to her entourage, right? An elite lady invests the money in her family, or let's say she buys herself purses, she looks good for her man gets something out of it. But giving purses to her friend? Why? Georgina sucks off Ronaldo's money and gives it to her friends. That's where the line is. The group of darlings. They're a group of moochers and seagulls who are just there because they're broke and they're tolerating her personality because of the bags and gifts she gives them. So you can clearly see she's probably not a nice person because their friends all say, oh, she's a good person, and I really like her because she gives us nice bags and experiences we wouldn't be able to have otherwise because we're so poor. And she doesn't have friends who are at her financial status. Let's observe this friend of Georgina's who says she's a good person and a super friend, right? Because she couldn't afford all those experiences on her own. Remember how I said earlier, when Kim Kardashian was flaunting her real ring, thieves stole her real ring and her jewelry, so Kim Kardashian knew that she should be like old money and not flaunt the wealth too much to the point that it becomes a serious security threat. Many affluent men hate Instagram, but those who have one, you'll see that they have photos of perhaps a plant on a sidewalk, something interesting or cute, or the forest, and hipster photos came off of this because affluent young people, they want to be relatable at university and also have an Instagram, but they're very scared to flash any signs of real wealth. And hipsters imitate that aesthetic. Hipsters imitate the aesthetic of the affluent student who desperately tries to dress down to be relatable and not get taken advantage of for their money. In the documentary, Georgina only has sycophants and no leveled up friends at her level. That's a red flag. Also, it's not much of a documentary. They just follow her around and people sing her praises, saying she's a good person without showing she's a good person. So that struck me as odd, and there is no plot. It's so unwatchable. And what was so disgusting was the charity work. Oh. My God, what did I watch? Oh. It's traumatizing almost to remember it. Ugh. Oof. So, let me recount what I saw. So, she says, I got an award because I'm a good person. And then she showed how the designer created the dress for her award. And then she took advantage of Down syndrome children and posted selfies with them and did this humanitarian selfie. You know how tasteless volunteerism selfies are, so she did those, and it's just so disgusting. Affluent people, aside from the royal family, even the royal family, they don't flaunt their charity work. They promote the galas and everything, and they raise funds for charity. But affluent people don't humiliate poor people to raise money. Affluent people allow poor people to have their dignity. While charity is important, rubbing it in people's faces is not appropriate at all. So, for example, Prince William, his cause is mental health, and also many affluent people do have a cause of their own or their own charity, something they know something about. If you want to donate, my cause is Yemen Aid, so I will put the link below. Meanwhile, Prince William, his cause is mental health, so he was volunteering for a crisis hotline and would take phone calls. So those who were in trouble and in pain, they didn't know that the person listening to them compassionately and telling them that their life mattered was the future King of England. He only stopped when he got caught. Arnaby correctly said Elita are discreet, though she made her money by selling a Nova Riche aesthetic, right? She bashes the Nova Riche, but that is how she made her money, by showing expensive places, locations, and so on. To the middle class, many love to be conned, and that's the sad truth. They would rather believe in get-rich-quick cons than realize money requires work. 50-50 egalitarian feminism opens women to being conned because they think they can just be themselves without having to level up and be a Georgina and the man will fall in love with them. When in reality there are very few people who are as dumb as Ronaldo, who will let a group of moochers. It's not just her, she has an entourage. She gives her male friends gifts from her baby daddy's money. I mean, that's just large gifts, and that's just so vulgar that she's using him in that way. Most affluent men, if they saw that, they would cut her off right away. So, because they worked really hard to develop their wealth, let's say through stocks, through bonds, and they want to save wealth for intergenerational wealth, and she is flushing the money down the toilet on bribing friends, they would say, you know what, I want a lady who can have friends based on her personality and not by using someone's money to bribe people to be around her. How do we know Georgina is trashy? And it's because a friend of mine, her mother said best, what is a high-value woman? So she asked her mother, their family has millions in Asia. She asked her, what's a high-value woman? She said, you know, modest, character, so on. But one thing she said that stuck, that a high-value woman doesn't chase a coin like a jungle girl. Not chasing a coin like a jungle girl, not being thirsty or desperate for wealth, protects you whether you're male or female, and it lets you do the proper research. The feminism and egalitarian culture shames women for following their instinct of looking for a father of their children capable of providing for them. So when they're finally met with someone who looks like a good provider, they have no basis on being able to judge, is this for real, is he conning them, or so on, especially if they grew up in a 50-50 culture where they're not trained to look for what is a good husband who can provide, protect, and commit. Those are three things: provide, protect, commit. Traditional ladies look for that in a gentleman, in a husband, and are trained to do so, and ignore the shaming of Western culture that shames women for looking for a proper father for their children. Shaming Western women for looking for a proper father for their children doesn't eliminate the gut hypergamous instinct that women have, so then they'll fall for cons. Rather than go against nature, you can't outrun nature. Why not teach women hypergamy? And then they can spot the red flags for themselves. I don't know a woman in the hypergamy community who would have fallen for the con the moment he says, oh, you know, I need money, and immediately they're like, wait, you dress like Nova Riche and ask me for money? You're clearly a fraud. Also, Julia pointed out in the comments on one of the videos on the Swindler that he has too strong of an accent to be affluent, because he would have gone to private school and would have learned English with perhaps an American or a British school. I have accent reduction classes, so I have worked to reduce my accent, right? I grew up in Yemen, right? I moved to the United States for my university, And can you hear my strong Arab Russian accent? Do I sound like this? They speak like this! No, right? So, I don't have a thick accent because of my education and because I work on it. I work on elocution every day. So, those who say, oh, it sounds false, well, this is my fourth language. How else will it sound? But you can hear that I went to private school and my accent is rather clear compared to someone like Simon Lviv. Like both of them, Anna Bay uses flash and flashing wealth to show off, right? Like Simon Lviv and Georgina, right? So Tattle says she's a scammer. Her friends, or those who have taken her course, say no, they found value in it. So, is Anna a scammer? Follow my videos in the future to see what I do think. Those of you who know me know that if you're a fan or hater of Anna Bay, the source of my clickbait and doubling my views, thank you, you will know that I always have nuance. I am not interested in people who are complete angels, and I'm not interested in people who are complete devils. I'm interested in nuance and complexity, because from there we can learn so much. And that's also why Georgina's documentary was very boring. So she had friends keep saying how she was such a saint, such a saint, such a saint. It was awful. They were just saying how she was a saint, and Madonna and Eva Peron, Chairman Georgina, is how it came across as a bizarre. Please like or hate, share and subscribe, and see you soon, as there'll be more talk on how to dress for intergenerational wealth and different things you have to wear to dress for success and not come across as an R strategist but as a K strategist. So do share, like and subscribe. See you soon, and don't forget to comment below.